We are now after break, and earlier as I've been introducing people and people who say yes as I've been doing other trainings, Becky Knudson is one of those. She says yes, and she's a great presenter like everybody else. And she represents, in my view, when it comes to acronyms in ODOT, the best one, TPAU. That's how, when I first heard it, that's what I thought of. So that's awesome. So Becky's with the Transportation Planning and Analyst Unit. She's the Senior Transportation Economist. So I give you Becky Knudson.
Hey everybody, it's really nice to be a speaker when you're not all tired out on the last day. So I'm here to try to really help you keep up that energy. This is really exciting stuff to me. Got here early, got to listen to Ken, and I thought, oh my gosh, he's describing my job. I have to be flexible, I have to be resourceful and creative, and that's why I really love my job. So hopefully you guys will embrace that as well when you have to apply it and make the world a better place. So I am a member of TPAU, as my manager loves saying. Did you know that there's a character in Star Trek? Her name was TPAU. You just say it differently. And I am a Star Trek fan, and I didn't know that either. So if you want to remember us, just think Star Trek. So there's 17 of us. We got 3 people missing from the picture here. Brian Dunn is our great leader on the left there in blue. He reports to Eric Havig, so Eric knows what we're up to most of the time. And yes, I am the token economist. All of my coworkers are wonderful engineers. And even though we're different, I am with my people, and I've been here 15 years doing this work. So we are part of your racetrack, a couple places, we touch on it, and you've heard a lot of detail related to the planning aspects of that. And then finally, when you actually have project development work, that is where our analysis comes in. And we support planning analysis as well, but we really are part of the process all along the way. So essentially, if there's a plan, there's analysis behind it. We've got 30, 40,000 foot analysis. We've got on the ground looking at turn movements and signal timing. So our analysis services cover the gamut of this kind of work. In fact, TPAU, in a way, has 4 distinct business units within, and all of those come with specific skills and familiarity with data processes, procedures, and different software programs we can use to do our work, and then different levels of being creative and resourceful and while meeting timelines and respecting budgets. So we represent essentially an internal consulting group. It's too difficult and too expensive to try to support this skill set at the region level. So over time, ODOT realized 30, 40 years ago that you had to have some of this real focused specialization within ODOT. And our customers are broad. We have customers at the region, we have MPOs, small cities, and they may be consultants working on the behalf of all these groups. So we have a diverse set of customers that we serve. And yes, I do say yes, because that's the way I approach pretty much everything in life. We'll figure it out. We can do some portion of yes. But understand, you heard from Ken about different communication styles, different work styles. Some people who are risk averse will initially say no, and then they'll come back in a week and say, oh yeah, I can see a yes. And I always jump to the yes, and so does my partner Alex Betnardi and Brian Dunn usually. And then we have to manage expectations. So there's, be careful when you listen and talk to people. Just continue the conversation to get more information and understand where people are coming from. But it's our job to prepare fact-based information for you. We're not going to just shout off our opinion or, well, in past projects we've done this or that. We go out, we find actual real-world data, and we try to explore issues and provide you with information. We can use techniques to answer what-if questions. What if we don't build it at all? What if we grow faster? What if we don't grow because we'll always be in a recession? And all these questions that we've dealt with before. And so we have the tools and the methods to address them. All you have to do is think of the questions, which is really important. And I finally found an example that really demonstrates that, where we were asked by an MPO transit agency to model increased service. So there were like 2 or 3 different routes added to their system, and they looked at the results and they said, well, ridership didn't go up at all. Well, we said, you didn't ask us what you need to do to increase ridership. You asked us what would happen if you added routes. Those are 2 very different questions. So we can answer both of them. And they didn't realize that, so we had to go back and redo the analysis. So it's often a process, and communication is key for us to do a good job for you. Everything we do is within the context of goals and objectives. So if you come in and you've got a project and it's there, people are expecting it to optimize this or optimize that, you really have to identify what you're optimizing, because there's always trade-offs. So it's really important to have the vision, clear goals and objectives, so you can bring people back to those and remind them why you're doing the project, because they'll start imposing other goals and objectives that weren't considered. Or maybe they were considered and they weren't really an issue. And also we're used near the end where you have all these different options of projects, different, all kinds of different features and maybe different phasing. So we can go through and look at them all side by side and help you find the best version that meets your goals and objectives and maintains a budget that's reasonable. So we provide technical guidance through our analysis procedures manual, known as the APM. If you ever hear that acronym, it just throws it around. It's the Analysis Procedures Manual, and we need to stop talking in acronyms. And it is huge. I think we have 19 chapters now, or we're going to have 19. I know we have 17 published online. And there's so much technical guidance. And we're actually using that, or professionals across the nation are using that manual for their work, because there's really nothing like it in existence right now. We just added a section on conducting benefit cost analysis. So I met one right before I came up here and was asked questions about benefit cost analysis, because I'm an economist. It's actually not done by my unit, but we do provide guidance on how it should be conducted, and ODOT benefit cost analysis is done by a revenue forecast economist, and in this case it's Jack Swadlanek, but he'll be retiring within a year, so if anybody wants to find an economist to come and work for ODOT, keep it in mind. We also, as I mentioned, we work on project analysis itself, and then sometimes that involves using modeling tools. Sometimes we just run modeling analysis and then hand it over to the project manager or a consulting firm to use that information. So we have a lot of different hats. We have a lot of ways to guide you. We're here as a resource. Any kind of question. We also have a lot of contacts with different customers, so we may be able to point you to people that you don't typically run across in your day-to-day business. So think of us as a resource. A lot of focus on tools, so we actually develop our own models, and we also use them and apply them ourselves. And those are 2 distinct skill sets, and it's not always common to have that in one unit. We also do a lot of work with data, because data isn't anything until you make it into information. So we have to figure out the quality and what it's telling you, what the bias is, and then treat it or beat it into submission and provide you with information. But really, ultimately, we have a toolbox, but the real resource here are the analysts. It's how we use the tools. You just think about that. It's really, the models are not designed to give you a yes or no answer or a happy face or a frowny face, but people expect that. And my husband worked for Hewlett-Packard for years. He actually retired and came to ODOT. Yeah. So we have a statistician if you ever need anyone to help you with math. And he said he went to Hewlett-Packard meetings and he was testing printers, and they said, look, just give us the answer. Give us a happy face or a frowny face. And I thought, oh my gosh, my job is a lot easier. I mean, nobody's asked me for a frowny face or happy face answer, but they do ask you to push a button and just give the answer. So that's just modeling and analysis in general. So trust us to know how to use our tools. We can analyze so much. We can look at different modes. I think, okay, must be white font. So it's a, if I had some lemon juice and a candle flame, I could reveal the title. But we do analysis across a lot of different topics. So we cover freight, or just trucks, but not just trucks. We've got marine, we've got rail, We analyze commodity flows. That's really an economic analysis. We do different modes, so you can have bicycles and pedestrians and buses, but then how the three work together. And we're learning more every day because there's emerging data sources that are really revealing patterns that we can do something with in our tools. And of course, passenger travel, which is in a way simple because we've been perfecting it for 40 years. But it's also challenging because people make trips for a lot of different reasons. They all have their different household logistical models, just like freight has different logistical models. So it gets complex, but we have the tools and we have the experience to really provide some information. And we try to message this coming down to simple language where, yes, there's data. Lately, we've been hearing a lot about big data. And big data, it sounds like just observed data in a large quantity, but it's really not. It's more than that. There's gaps in it, and so these data providers have models themselves that estimate and fill in the gaps. So we need to know how they're doing that, what bias it introduces, and so we can figure out how to use it wisely. But the data actually represents real-world observation. So it'll take away our personal bias if we use real-world information. And this also makes us more believable when we work with people on these projects, and we could say, the data made us do it. Well, not really, but we aren't imposing our own personal feelings here. We're following a data-driven process to provide information. And then that information really is just finding patterns that the data reveals, patterns that we can trust, and we've really, really tested and looked into in detail what we can say and what we can say, what we cannot say. And then knowledge comes from figuring out how to take information and applying it to your decision. What project design works best? What process should we follow to do this work? It's just, these are tools for you to do your job more effectively. They are not designed to drive the process. That's really your purview. We're a resource for all of you. So that's, I know how exciting that is, but that's more there's more lemon juice and candle flame. But now I wanted to bring you an example to kind of bring this to life instead of just kind of going through the series of points. So this is an example that's in southern Oregon on it's in the Medford area, and it's Oregon State Highway 60. So this is the area of the project, and there was a federal environmental impact study that was done a while ago, and it needed some updating. So they identified the study area, which is where this planned interchange will go into, and it's the Vilas interchange is the name of the project. Peter Skydema is a coworker, and he runs projects or does analysis for Region 3 area. In fact, I found not just Region 3, but across the state, if I ask people, do you know TPAU? Have you heard of us? Oh yeah, I know TPAU. That's Peter Skydema. It's like, well, yeah, he's one of 17 people, but so if you can't remember TPAU, you remember Peter Skydema. He's about this tall. You can't miss him. So he provided me with a bunch of project information that I won't remember. But in general, this study was meant to update the environmental impact study and to really comb over the different alternatives, identify what people expected out of this, this project, and conduct some analysis. All in all, there were 18 different scenarios for the project. Several of them were no builds. They're like different levels of not really building the full project. Then there were intermediate, and then there was the full build and not worrying about budget. And the process followed involves identifying performance measures. So every alternative is looked at using these predefined, pre-agreed upon performance measures. Again, that process removes some bias as well. So when you get a project, you can be confident there was a lot of work done looking at these details, and probably really good documentation if you need to dig into it later. And as you heard from Ken, when you do get that project and you start doing your work, there's probably going to be more analysis that'll be done. So when you're scoping, you need to make sure and include extra time for some analytical work. I know it takes time and it involves somebody else to work with, but it will take you more time later if you don't do it. So just keep that in mind and try to have a buffer time for some analytical processes to happen. So here, this is out of a technical memo, and basically example metrics of things that are looked at project by project, side by side. And the stakeholders and the project team and technical advisory committee all come up with this together, so everyone's following the same process and they're all trusting the process to take them to a final decision. So they look at things like the network travel time, or maybe just the network speeds, delay that's caused, and how it varies by project. And also a number of stops, which I'm not sure what that means, but it's probably a stop sign versus interchange. And then you can pare it down to best and worst and different levels, however you want to look at, and pare it down to a smaller number and then look deeper into it. So here's an example of what they look at for options to not build something, because that is a viable option, especially when budget is so limited. And sometimes there are alternatives of the no build that are good enough to cover for the next 10 years, and then maybe you can put the big project out later and then you can join it with other projects, gain some synergies. So the planning process will kind of look for these opportunities where you can meet system-wide goals and objectives and also local objectives, because you have options and you can be creative and resourceful and then look at different funding opportunities as well. So you can have no-build versions that give you maybe mostly what you're looking for. So what I was hoping you guys would take out of this presentation is that the planning process, it's really open, it's documented, it relies on techniques that on the technical side and real-world data. It gets you started on the right foot, because this isn't just somebody's wild idea. It's actually based on analysis, and it's considering multiple goals and objectives, which is tricky in our business. We hear things like safety is number one. Yeah, safety is number one, but if safety was the only thing we focused on, we'd just close all the highways. So we don't need to work here, right? But that's not the case. We have to provide people and businesses with mobility so that they can do what they want to do, and as an economist like to say, as economic agents. You're all economic agents. All the freight moving is related to other economic agents, and everybody's trying to do what they want to do within their time and their money budgets. And we are here to accommodate that. So we try to optimize multiple things. So there's always trade-offs. The analysis process will reveal those trade-offs. And then stakeholders and the people involved can identify what their priorities are and try to find the best fit to meet their objectives. And we do really help with the bias parts, like there's ODOT just doing what they want to do and ignoring us, but we can point to the process. We can point to a lot of hard work done to support the project and then during the project development to demonstrate that's not true. And we can also do a lot to explore uncertainty. We can do a lot of what if. And in my experience, the freight plan was the best example, where we started our very first freight plan in 2008, and we were in the depths of a recession, and we had people on the stakeholder group, and they were saying, we don't need to do a freight plan because the economy's in the toilet and it'll never come back. So as the technician who has learned how to communicate and listen over many years, sat in the back saying, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But it never went away. Literally, it was the theme for 2 months of meetings. So finally, behind the scenes, I said, look, we can explore that uncertainty. And that's what we did. And basically, in the end, whether we grow fast or slow, we still have to feed people, clothe people, and do all this work, and we have to accommodate a lot of freight. So that helped the project move forward. We are here as a service. There's no stupid questions. The worst case would be we would refer you to someone else, or just say we can't answer that, but ask us in 2 years. Everything takes like 2 years, a new model development, a new data source to explore. But we're here to help. We are creative, we are resourceful, and I have the best job in the whole agency, but I hope you feel that same way. And with that, I think there's time for questions. Oops, can't surprise you with what's next.
I want to know, who are your primary customers? Is it primarily region level ODOT? Is it primarily high level ODOT? Or do you ever get hired out by even local governments to explore options?
Yes, yes, yes. We, primary, I guess I would say ODOT region, but then within the region, there's MPOs. So through the region, we help MPOs, and we actually are responsible for several urban models for the smaller MPOs. Like Salem Kaiser, they have their own team. Eugene Springfield has their own, and Metro. But we do the remainder of all the models, and then we have them for small cities. So yes, and then sometimes they hire consultants, so we help, the consultants help them. That's the bulk of our customers.
I've got 2 questions. First question, is it a free service? Second question is, how long does the process take?
And the first question was?
Do you guys charge to EAs?
Oh, no, this is our job, so it's in our budget to provide these services. When we get a lot of business requested at the same time, we'll prioritize, and then we definitely check in with region as to what region priorities are, and we'll go through what work is listed for them, and then we'll negotiate a timeline. The length of time needed, it just depends on the analysis. Sometimes it's so quick, we can do it in a week. If you're requesting a model run, we can do that usually in 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how complex. And then there's things like we've done statewide economic impact studies that took, a year. So I can't really answer that one. It depends on the complexity and the questions you want answered.
Questions? Any other questions? Okay.
Sorry, I usually don't need a microphone. I can just yell, but.
So you mentioned models for small cities, particularly MPOs. Do you do them for smaller cities other than MPOs fairly regular? Is that on a regular basis, or is it just when requested?
It's when requested. They will have, I think the most recent one we did was the Dalles. And, they had I think they had a TSP or RTP, TSP to do, and so they gave us plenty of warning. The region talked to us about workload, and we developed a model for them. And
just the cities or counties too?
We've been asked for some county stuff before. That's not as common. Like Marion County wanted a model, but they didn't have much. They didn't want it to take long, and so there's all that criteria. So what we did is we took the statewide model and we cut out Marion County. We'd never done it before, but it worked out really nice, and we provided them with a really nice model within 2 months. So that's creativity and resourcefulness. People will ask us for stuff, and we've been pretty lucky so far. But we've got small urban models. We've done it for Hermiston, but only for emergency evacuation. So that's different than like long-range planning, TSP type stuff, where they care about average weekday. This tool was actually formed to have an event during the workday period and then see how fast people can evacuate. So we can adapt our tools to different questions, which makes the job fun for us. I live in the rural Dallas, 16,000 people. We don't have a model. I'm just waiting for someone to say, yes, make us a model. But we've got Astoria. That one's very busy, and Astoria, Warrenton, Coos Bay. So we have a lot more small cities with travel demand models than you'd expect.
Becky, I've heard from our traffic resources sometimes that we have no data or no way to estimate volumes of bike ped users for our projects on the highway systems. Do you concur with that, or are there resources starting to become available?
We are starting to see modal data like that. It's still a bit sparse. It's part of that big data stuff, but we're looking into it, and we got to figure out what bias it has, how complete. So it is emerging. Strava data is the biggest one for bikes. There's been research looking at like the pedestrian, the button they push when they cross, using that to estimate the number of walkers. So we have methods emerging, data sources emerging, And they're emerging fairly quickly, so we're always looking for the best way to use that information. It really is changing every year. It's amazing. It's very exciting.
Okay, Becky, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
For about, 30 seconds, Becky Knudson wants to edit an answer, and then we'll get to Jeff.
So I revealed my silo of work by incorrectly answering a question regarding whether TPAU services are free. So our budget does account for all of our modeling and the modeling, planning, analysis, but when it comes to specific projects, which all of you represent, so I forgot my audience, the analysis is part of the budget. We do not have a budget line. It's unpredictable for us when we're going to be doing that kind of work. So for everyone in this room, we are not free, but we are really affordable. And we give you really good value and good turnaround time. So I hope that makes up for that. So sorry about that.